The Fujicast is an independent loading zone production.
Saturday, 9th of May.
The Fujicast.
Hello, welcome to the Fujicast at the weekend. We had a bank holiday yesterday, didn't we, Kev? Did you notice that at all?
I know. Isn't it weird? It's like the first Friday bank holiday in 1,000 years or something.
Well, of course, there was a very good reason for it being VE day, but that means that we don't get it on the Monday. Not that it makes any difference to some of us now on a Monday, does it? Really? But
no. But do you remember when they first announced that the bank holiday was going to be on a Friday instead of a Monday? There were so many people that were up in arms because, like, the part-time workers who typically work on Mondays and but still get their bank holidays on Mondays were like, hang on, I'm going to lose a day's worth of work or a day's holiday.
Lose a day's worth of work? Luxury. God, I know how the world changes, eh? How things change. Anyway, welcome to the Fujicast. It's the photography show that's daily during the lockdown, as opposed to weekly usually. You're very welcome. We formed, hopefully, a nice community. And at the weekend, we do something slightly different in that we have interviews, and there's no exception. This weekend, we've got 2 interviews. I'll talk to you about who we've got today in just a moment's time. Tomorrow, we kind of dot around Europe and the world, catching up with a few friends of the show who've been doing personal projects during the lockdowns. We're going to go to Australia, to America, to France, and a little bit further up the motorways into Scotland as well. So that's what we're doing tomorrow. Today, though, and you know her. I think you know her, don't you? Elke Vogels.
Elke.
Do you know, just you started this because I was fine with saying Elke Vogelsang, and then you tongue-tied me. Elke Vogelsang is going to be today's guest. Sorry, Elke.
She's wonderful.
She is.
I met her in Germany, actually. Very, very, very good photographer and very nice person.
Did you share a stage with her? Did you?
Yeah, she was. We were on the same, not at the same time, but Photokina.
You should have said, Elke, have you seen some of the dog portraits I do? Come and look at a picture of Git.
Yeah, I'd love to see. I would absolutely. That's a really good idea. I might package Git up and put him in a box and send him over to Germany. Yeah, it won't take long to get to Germany in a box, will it?
Oh, don't send Git to Germany. Well, Elke, as you're going to find out, her journey was quite accidental in many respects. I mean, she's turned into, I think, a real darling of the canine photography world. Not just dogs as well, actually, cats and horses as well. But I think she's very, very well known, obviously, for her work with dogs, and these immense portraits that they're just so humorous, aren't they?
They're amazing, yeah. And I believe she has a whippet as well.
She does,
which features a lot in her pictures.
Yeah,
and her whippet looks a lot like my whippet. And I remember seeing one picture. It was at Photokina, I think, but not the year that we spoke together. I think it was a different year when they had a little gallery exhibition of her pictures. And it was like this big 6 foot wide by 3 foot picture of her whippet with the David Bowie stripes across his face or her face.
Oh yeah!
And it was phenomenal. It was huge.
Yeah.
And I remember sending the picture to Gemma and saying, "We have to do this. Yeah. We have to do this to the whippet."
Did you ever go?
We didn't. No,
you didn't.
But Gemma is painting the garden fence as we speak. So.
I think the most incredible thing about Elke's story is the narrative behind how she accidentally fell into this work through what could have been really quite horrible circumstances. But I don't want to spoil it. You'll hear the interview very, very soon. A quick sort of rewind over the Fuji Fund stuff that we started mentioning over the last couple of days. That's still going, of course, and the 20th is when you can actually bid for the final bid for the photographs. Is that right?
Absolutely. 20th of May kicks off. Yes. So good luck to everybody there, and hopefully make a lot of money for charity.
Fujifund.org, and you can read all about it. And one of Kev's pictures is there being auctioned as well, or being sold rather. It's not auctioned, it's sold, isn't it?
No, sold, yeah.
Russell Auld, who will feature, I think, next weekend. I asked Ian to send me, because he organised it, of course, didn't he, to send me some of his thoughts about some of his favourite pictures that are there. And he said, I'm constantly blown away by Russell in his work. What he can do with a camera and in the environment he calls his office, which is the ocean in southwest Australia, is nothing short of spectacular. The shot he's donated not only excites the visual sense, but you can hear the roar of the wave and feel that spray. And I concur with that, Ian. Russell's work is absolutely gorgeous, amazing work. So, Right, questions. Peter Johnson's. We got a couple of questions, then we'll hear from Elke. Peter Johnson. Hi Neil. Hi Kev. Just a quick one. Considering both cameras, do you mind the X Pro 3 uses the old Fuji battery and not the newer, higher capacity version now used in the XT4? Love the dailies. Don't take it the wrong way, but I hope they don't last too much longer and things get back to a kind of normal. Peter in County Durham. Peter Johnson. Yeah, what do you think about... We talked about batteries in a slightly different stance last week, didn't we?
Yeah, well, I mean, there you go. So people have been complaining for a long time that the batteries aren't lasting long enough. Although in vast majority of cases, they could get the batteries to last a lot longer, in my opinion. However, they have, for the XT4, created a little bigger battery. Yeah. Which lasts longer.
A little bigger battery.
They've created a little bigger battery.
Okay.
That will a little bigger battery, a bigger little bit. Oh, they've created a bigger.
It's a bigger battery.
They've created another battery that's a little bit bigger.
Yes, that's it. Oh, got there in the end.
To pacify those people, and that's the way it is. You know, the XT4 is more power hungry, I guess, and it's going to need to heat sink a bit more, especially if people are doing filming and what have you with it. Yeah. So no problem. I have no problems with the battery switch, and I would imagine going forward, the X Pro, whatever the next version of that will be, will use this newer battery. Various cameras going forward will use the newer battery.
Oh my word! Is Git knocked something over?
Probably, yeah. I'm not even turning around to see what's happening.
You can't win with the battery thing, can you? Because one minute people say, I want really small cameras, titty cameras, and then you start make a slightly bigger battery, and I want smaller batteries now, but I want them to have the same power. It's a bit of an impossible to win one, this, isn't it?
I still don't understand how people are only getting like 350 pictures out of the batteries on the XT2, 3, X Pro 2, X Pro 3. Yeah. I just don't understand it, because I get way more than that, and I did actually write a piece on my F16 website about it. So there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate. For example, you can not use the LCD so much. You can also switch off the overlays. A lot of the overlays you don't need. You don't need to perhaps know what the white balance is if it's on auto all the time. So switch off that little display, and that's a little bit less power that the camera is doing to take up battery. So anyway, they have answered it by sticking a bigger battery in, which obviously won't work in the backwards compatibility list.
No.
But forward compatibility, I'm sure that's the battery they will all use.
Helen Fennell is not so much a question, but she's written in some stuff that's helped her during her street photography, and I thought this might be quite handy to read out, and you might have some thoughts on this as we go through them. So thank you, Helen, for your email to click@fujicast.co.uk. Hi Kev, hi Neil. Hope you're all safe and well. Been enjoying the daily on my early morning walk, so thank you for helping us to stop going completely up the wall. I heard the question about how to approach street portraits the other day, and I thought I'd share what I've found helpful. First time I decided to take street portraits, I went to my local high street, spent 45 minutes lurking on a corner, waiting to find somebody who looked kind to ask. Have you done... we talked about street portraits, and... Yeah, I don't. Have you done actual street portraits yourself, Kev? Or
no, but this is the thing that you and I are going to be doing.
Yes, you mentioned it. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, didn't you? Or a week ago.
This is going to be when we come out of the lockdown. We are heading into town.
Which town? Malmesbury or London?
Maybe not London. Would it not definitely not Malmesbury. Maybe we'll go to Newbury.
Newbury, would it not be? I tell you what, I've tried on the streets of Newbury. People are saying, "No, not today, thank you." No, I'm not selling you anything. I just want to make a picture. Yeah. I guess we've just got to man up and be brave, haven't we? Really?
Yeah. No, we're going to do it. This is our challenge. This is one thing I've learned from lockdown is that people are raising their game in terms of giving themselves things to actually challenge themselves by, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to be outside our comfort zone. And you're coming with me regardless. So
I'm going to wear a Mullins mask.
We're going to do it.
I'm going to wear a Mullins mask. It's not me, it's Mullins. I finally spotted a couple sat on a bench, and I went up and had a chat. I learned a lot from the first encounter. Number one, Always chat first. Compliment their hat, their tattoo, their mohican before you approach the subject of a photo. That way they're relaxed and we made a connection and I get a better portrait, she says. It's nice to know about your subject and I always take a name. Try to take my time so it doesn't feel as if I'm grabbing a photo and running. Each portrait probably takes about 10 minutes. So that's a reasonable amount of time to spend with somebody. And I guess then you are investing yourself in them and they can see that you have a level of interest, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this kind of backs up what we said before, wasn't it? Typically the people who are going out of their way to look a little bit different are doing it because they like the attention, and that's great. So yeah, go for it. Speak to them, talk to them, send them the pictures, and away you go. And we said this about the family photography thing. I do think that there is a gender, not an issue, absolutely not an issue, but there's a gender difference here. So if I, in my, especially the way I look right now, if I walked up to a strange person in the street and said, "Excuse me, could I take your picture, please?"
Oh no.
Yeah,
you're not going to do that when we go out doing these, are you?
Whereas, it's dependent on your appearance, your stuff, and everything. That's why I suggested when we first talked about it that you have two people, one who looks like that they're maybe perhaps holding a light stand or a camera bag or whatever, so it looks more real and more professional.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm excited by this idea.
Number 2, she said, I explain that I'm taking street portraits. I always tell them how they're going to be used because it worries a lot of people. Then if they're okay with me taking the shot, I take a few and sometimes ask them to move to a better light and so on and so forth. Now, it's interesting, Gabrielle Matola, who we talked to recently, doesn't get engaged in any of that sort of detail anymore. I wonder whether then you can get into too much debate and too much dialogue, and it worries people more that they're thinking, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about where they were going to be used. Yeah, or maybe not today, thanks. Or do you disagree?
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose it depends a little bit on the implementation. I like candid street photography. That's my thing. And I've got what I consider portraits of people, but very candidly. They're not, they're not staring at the camera, and it's clearly a kind of posed picture type thing. Although that really does interest me, and I think it's just different approaches, isn't it? And I've said it a million times. It'd be a very boring world if we all did things exactly the same way. And yeah, if you're under the hammer of time, perhaps, and it's a commission, then perhaps you do need to just get on with it. If you're doing it just for the love of photography, which a vast majority of us would be,
you can spend a bit longer.
Make it enjoyable, make it cathartic, make it an exercise of not only taking pictures, but an exercise of interaction and community building and meeting new people.
Well, that's a very good point. Yeah, Helen made 4 points. Third one. I have my Instax printer. Now, I know you've done this, Kev, with me, and I give them a copy of the shot, which always goes down very well. Then I give them a card with my website and email address on it and tell them to contact me if they'd like a free copy for their social media and so on, which is probably a good idea, isn't it, Kev? I think it's quite a friendly way. Would you like, what's going on with your machine today? You're very popular.
I'm so sorry. Is it? I've got Breezy nagging me to try and go out in the living room.
Yeah, right on cue. And you got your dating app keeps binging and bonging at you.
I'm trying to text Gemma to let Breezy out, but it's not working. So I'm just going to let her out.
Let Breezy out. Go on, Breezy. Go chase the cats. I tell you, this never happens to Elke Vogelsang. Never happens to Elke.
No,
she'd have dog whispered that dog into kind of, Elke, you just do what you need to do. I'm cool. I'll wait here. Not your dogs. Number 4, if somebody says no, then I never ask why. I never pressure them. I simply say, no problem, wish them a nice day and move on. You never know what's going on in people's lives, and I don't want to make somebody's day worse. Generally, 90% of the people say yes. Good point.
Absolutely. You definitely don't want to cause any kind of conflict, and you never know what's going on in people's world. So, yeah, if they say no, you just say, no problem, enjoy, I loved your hat. I feel like the street portraiture type element of street photography is something that I've really shied away from.
Yeah.
But it's always interested me, and I think I've shied away from it purely because I'm probably a bit scared. I'm just like, I don't know. Yeah. But when you look at the work of the people that are out there, we talked about. I can't remember the book was called People of London, wasn't it? And it was,
yeah. What was his name?
Polish sounding surname. Anyway, it's a couple of episodes back. And that's a beautiful book, Hoxton Mini Press book.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a whole mini industry that's popped up from things like the People of New York, you know, that Facebook group that was just a Facebook group and it turned into a movie, books. Yeah. I think they've even had records out, haven't they? And, you know, I think it's great, you know, the people, I can stare at people's faces and just think, you know, what's happened in your life, where you're going, you know, what you're doing. You're beautiful, you're perhaps not so beautiful, perhaps you've got lines, you know, things have happened, and I think that's the magic of it all.
Well, when we go do that, it might be interesting if we filmed each other in the process as well. I don't know. Maybe you don't think that's a good idea, but
you said this last time. Every time I suggest us doing something, you say, "We'll film it." Yeah,
sorry, we won't film it. But I might audio record it because it would be interesting. But it would be interesting for the podcast, wouldn't it? To hear what people say. You know, there'd be you crooning to them, saying "You're beautiful" with your liney face.
Yeah. And then we could end up with you coming to get us from the jail later in the evening or something.
That's it. Bail posted. Right. Elke Vogelsang, the incredibly talented humorist. And I use that title very easily alongside photographer. Now, Elke teaches me a very valuable lesson in this interview, just about halfway in, and that's to do with how you promote, or if you like, introduce yourself as a photographer, particularly at the start of your career or a project. Now, the effort you afford people and their projects, no matter the size of their following, is something that very much opened my imagination. So, who is Elke? Well, I think The Who shows exceptionally well in her pictures of dogs. Wit, invention, life, communication, authenticity. I could keep trying to explain her work when actually you'll see and understand this in spades if you just visit her site, which you'll find links for, of course, in the show notes. Even if you're not thinking of this as a career, because it is pretty niche, there's something quite extraordinary about this photographer's approach to life and making pictures, and definitely in the backstory to how she started. If I were to give this episode an alternative title, I think it would be There's Something About Elke, which I hope you'll equally find over the coming minutes of this Saturday edition interview. So, Elke, I became aware of your work through a series of introductions. One of those from a photographer in the UK called Mandy Burton, who photographs dogs herself. And when we were chatting about pet portraits, she said, but, Neale, you need to look at Elke. She just takes this to another level. So, so how did it all start? Real grassroots question, but when did you begin making pictures of dogs and cats?
Yeah, first of all, say hi to Mandy. That's cool. Thanks for mentioning me. Yeah, I started photography as a hobby in the analog days already. But I just snapped away and documented. Once in a while, I wanted to become a better photographer and shot a few films. And when I got back the results, I was not satisfied. And then I just forgot about it for quite a while again. And I think it was 10 years ago now, my family and I had a quite stressful time with several sick family members. So we had taken on my mother-in-law with dementia. My mother-in-law was a lovely lady, but dementia is not so lovely. So that was in 2007. And 2 years into that time, my father died and my mother needed more help. So I had my mother-in-law to take care of and my mother. And so that was quite stressful. And I had decided to start a one-picture day project. I wanted to start that on January 1st, 2010. And on Christmas, so right before I wanted to start that one-picture day project, I found my husband unconscious in the bathtub. And the diagnosis was a severe brain hemorrhage due to ruptured aneurysm.
Oh, my word.
So this was now complete and utter chaos. It was really, really a challenging time. So my husband was in an induced coma, and they didn't have much hope that he would survive. And so I started this one picture day project to try to keep something, to keep up something like normality at that time, and to have something like a creative outlet, because it was just lots and lots of sick people to take care of, lots of worry. And the dogs had to be taken for a walk. So they were my models. My husband recovered fully, thankfully. He had no short-term memory at all for weeks or months. I also wrote a written diary for him, which is, in hindsight, very, very funny, actually, because he was not aware of his situation. And yeah, he had no short-term memory at all, and some things were really, really funny, but only from a later perspective, not at that time.
Well, it's interesting you use the word funny, because, you know, the first word that strikes me when I look at your homepage is humour. Simply that, humour. You're obviously somebody who, even in those darkest moments, can find humour in things. But you found the character of your sitters, so in this case, the animals, you found their character through this humour. But where do your ideas come from? I mean, do you look at a dog and think, do you know what, I'm going to have that dog hold a rose in its mouth? Or be licking sorbet from a tub, or be cuddling up to a lovely fluffy duck looking like that toy is the only friend in the world. Where do your ideas come from?
Humour and German, that doesn't really go together.
I wasn't saying that.
My husband, for example, is very, very funny, and we laugh a lot here. And I think dogs are very funny. And at that time, when I did this one picture a day project, the first pictures I took when my husband was in the hospital were dark and moody and not funny at all. So the funny pictures came later on, because I think dogs are very, very funny. I had to come up with a new idea every day, and I put the pictures on the internet. I showed them in a blog, and I didn't want to bore the people, the 1 or 2 followers I had, I don't know, with the same ideas over and over again. So I had to come up with something new every day.
And that's the great thing about your story, is that you started out really small, no followers, and you've built this whole thing has been brick by brick by brick, and it's that organic thing. This is a story, Elke, I try and get across to our kids. I always say to them, look, you can't just one day wake up with 100,000 subscribers. You can't just one day wake up with 5,000 followers. You have to build it, and that's been what your business has been about, isn't it?
Yes. In 2000, let's say 7, 8, 9, whatever, I sat in front of my computer and I admired the pictures of other people, and I was absolutely convinced that they have talent and I haven't got any talent. And I will never be able to produce such nice pictures. And nothing happened overnight for me. I just kept on taking pictures all the time, and I keep repeating myself in many, many areas. I shoot dogs all the time, so I keep taking pictures of dogs and do the same in that perspective, but also I have the same topic in a way, and I keep repeating myself, but I enjoy it very much. But that also improves my eye for detail. The specialization in dogs, this taking pictures all the time. I take a lot of pictures which are really crap, but because I just keep on taking pictures once in a while, they are better.
Does it? I mean, you've got 3 dogs, haven't you? Is that right? Yeah. Well, what flavour are they? What breed?
They are Spanish mixes. 2 of them are Galgo Español mixes. That's the Spanish Greyhound, and the third one is a whatever mix.
Whatever. Does it help to have a dog if you're making pet portraits? I know that sounds a strange thing to ask, but perhaps it's not as strange and obvious as it sounds, because a very good friend of mine made absolutely incredible images of horses. He doesn't have one, he can't ride, he doesn't much care for them, or the whole industry behind them, but he just makes these amazing pictures of them. But you've got dogs. Do you think that's an advantage when you're making pet portraits?
Yes, well, definitely. Well, I think you should like them at least, so that your friend doesn't care for horses is quite amazing that he's able to, portray them. Because I think that I can see when a photographer has no interest in the dog whatsoever, because then you can see that the dog is just like a prop sometimes. So I do love dogs, and I do have my own dogs, but I think it's not absolutely necessary to have a dog of your own. There are so many dogs out there, and if you want to improve your dog photography without having a dog yourself, just ask friends with dogs, or go to a dog school, or do pictures for animal rescue organizations for dogs to find forever homes. So that's where you can try out your dog photography.
How did you find your first clients, as it were?
The very first booking I got was from friends. They got together and hired me, and I traveled to their location and they put all the dogs together. That was my first paid job. So friends and later on people via Facebook, for example, was quite important for me in those days. Nowadays, it's not that important anymore because I don't really shoot for private people anymore.
Do you not? Okay.
Nowadays, I show only the pictures on the web, which I'm also able to sell.
Now, you're a Fujifilm shooter, aren't you? So,
yeah.
And you're a Fujifilm ambassador as well, of course. And we should really run through your kit of choice. Otherwise, I'll be lynched by those that say, "Come on, you didn't ask Elke about the kit she uses." So, what's in the kit bag?
My handy and trusty XT3. And in the studio, I nearly entirely shoot with the Fujinon 16 to 55, because then I can do quirky, funny, wide-angle shots at around 16 millimeters and more elegant ones with 55 millimeters. Outdoors, my telelens is the
5140 by any chance?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I love the 90 millimeters for elegant portraits outdoors.
And is the 90 millimeter zippy enough on focus? Because
it is. Most of my action shots of my own dogs are actually shot with the 90 millimeters.
Okay. In terms of lighting, I'm imagining the bright colours, these big pictures. You're using quite a lot of strobe, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So how does the setup work there? Because I'm always intrigued by how different animals, and we'll talk about cats in a while, but different animals react to this sort of explosion of light. How do you find that with dogs?
When a dog is scared by the strobe, it's usually not because of the light, but the sound. So I don't really dial in a very high power. And I have only one strobe. I have two strobes, but I use only one on dogs because I had a very important, large commercial project. I think it was 2 years ago, and I had to shoot lots and lots of different dogs and cats, and all with the same light. And the dogs came from all over the place, from different owners. And I had to make sure that the dogs are all lit the same way and that all dogs are okay with the light. So for that project, I used only one strobe to be on the safe side. And actually, it works perfectly well to use only one. It's not very inventive. My light is really flat. And I like when the fur of the dog is evenly lit. So that's what I like. Of course, you can be more experimental and creative with lots of different lights, but then you also have to have a cool dog that's fine with 3 strobes firing from different directions. Most dogs will do perfectly, but some might get scared, and so you reduce the risk of the dog getting scared by only using one strobe. But I also use reflectors to the sides of the dog, and also one under the chin if needed. And
the strobe you're using, is that studio strobe, or is it a speed light, or what kind of kit is that?
I don't know how you pronounce it, Jinbei. It's capable of high-speed synchronization, which I find very, very handy with dogs.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're a big fan of complementary backdrop colours, big colour spaces behind the dogs. I mean, firstly, do you have a large studio space, or do you travel with your lighting to different places to work?
I have a studio place in my house, and it's around, I think, 30 square meters.
Oh, it's good space then.
And it's definitely enough for dogs, not for horses. No. When I photograph horses, I go out to the stables.
Now, you've so many magazine covers that feature your work, Elke. When did that all start clicking into place? People such as Times Magazine, those sort of organisations. Suddenly people thought, have you seen what Elke's doing?
It started in 2014 when I wrote articles for websites. Whenever somebody asked me if I could write an article or just a short interview, no matter how many followers that blog had, I always put the extra effort in and wrote a piece for them. And sometimes you think nothing comes back, but once in a while something comes back. I was on holidays and I got an email from a website owner who asked me if they could feature my pictures. And I was on holidays, and I just said, well, yes, of course, thank you very much. Just choose the pictures you like, and from my 500px page, because I'm on holidays, I can't send you anything. And in those days, I was still an outdoor photographer, and I thought that studio photography was really, really boring. Yeah, I just had pictures of dogs in mind, bored dogs on cardboard. That was studio photography for me. So from the very beginning, I tried to come up with something more interesting, and those were these funny shots. Yeah. And this website decided to take the studio pictures. And what I didn't know was that website was huge. They had, I don't know, loads and loads of followers. That was Bored Panda. And so they featured my pictures and all these studio pictures, and the pictures went viral massively. Yeah, so all of a sudden I was the studio photographer, and that's, when I decided to specialize in studio photography, and more websites featured those pictures. And that's when the magazine started contacting me. Everybody can write an article on Bored Panda, for example. There are lots and lots of websites out there which feature photography projects. If you've got a nice picture series with some text, you can send it in, for example, to My Modern Met or This Is Colossal. And when they feature it, you have a lot of attention for your pictures. You might have a lot of attention.
That's a very, very good tip. And I know you shoot mostly commercial now, but as a portrait photographer working with kids, the thing I used to hear most often, Elke, from one style of parenting was, behave and you'll get a McDonald's. And they said, stop it, Riley, behave. You get a KFC if you carry on, keep smiling. And it was even more agitating when they introduced treats into the shoot, because when the child would then only perform if a bar of chocolate was made available. I would imagine, though, in your line of work, treats are sort of kind of essential, aren't they, to make dogs and cats toe the line?
Yes. So I've got loads of different tricks. I first try some noises to try to get an interested look from the dog, some head tilts. So I always try to go for these head tilt pictures where the dog looks really cute and the ears up. And I try to whistle or to whisper or do very, very stupid sounds when I'm in a park somewhere. You can't be afraid of making a fool out of yourself when you photograph dogs. So I make the most stupid sounds to try to get these cute looks. And then I try treats, yes, definitely. Some dogs react better to toys, but you always have to be careful, because when you use a ball and you've got a ball junkie, some terrier, for example, you might not have a chance anymore to get an elegant portrait of that dog.
Yeah, it's gone, I suppose. As soon as the ball comes in, it's like, oh, let's play.
Yeah.
Have you ever been bitten?
No.
No.
I had dogs snapping at me very, very rarely, and it not really, it didn't injure me or anything. It's just, then I made some kind of mistake if that happens.
Now,
but it happens very seldom.
Now, cats have an entirely different personality to dogs, as I see it. Now, I'm a dog person, Elke. I'm not really a cat person. And I know some people can be both, and you clearly are. But me and cats, we don't really get on. I mean, I would imagine that, cats are kind of like they sort of, well, I might get involved, I might not. I'm not, not today, thanks. Not for me. It doesn't matter how many treats you give me. I'm not really very interested. And I wonder if cats are more awkward to work with than dogs. I mean, you wouldn't think it looking at your pictures, because your cat pictures are just as glorious as your dog ones. But what's easiest?
Definitely dogs. Cats are so much more difficult. And if a cat decides it can't be bothered, then that was it. You can't make a cat perform for your camera if the cat is not interested. So I have treats, and I have a feather, for example, something to play. Yeah. And most young cats will really be into it. But maybe for 15 minutes.
Yes.
And then it might be boring. And I had quite a few cats who just said no, go home.
How much of your work is commercial now? Then you mentioned you're not really working for private clients, so I imagine that's got to be about 90%. Or are you aiming your work now to become completely commercial?
Yes, I am aiming at that. I have a quite nice tactic now in a way. I need models all the time for my picture archive. Wow. So currently, unfortunately, I can't shoot any other dogs except for my own, but usually I hire model dogs, and they get the owners get paid in pictures, and I can use the pictures for my picture archive.
Perfect.
But of course I can't use the 15th black Labrador for my picture archive. So if somebody with black Labrador applies, or would like to have a private session, I say, well, I do accept private sessions, only 5 a month, but you have to pay for it, and I can still use the pictures in my picture archive.
Now, I spied a horse appearing on your site. What's happening, Elke? Your animals are getting larger and larger gradually.
Yeah, horses are one of my favorites too. And I take pictures for a German horse magazine. They send me out to do reportages for them, and that's one of my absolute favorite things. Then I spend the day at a horse vet or with fell ponies, for example, and document these horses for the articles, and that's great fun. That's super interesting.
Could you work your same magic, do you think, with humans?
I actually did take lots of pictures of humans, because in the beginning I thought I have to do everything to try to make a living from it. And I even did weddings, but that's no good for my nerves. And you should stop when it's still great. So I stopped that years ago. But I also took pictures of families and especially children, and it was great fun. I loved it. And I had quite a few clients coming back every single year. And I still have clients from the early years which come back every year, and some of them for 10 years now. And I still take those pictures, but that's the only human portraits I still shoot.
What's next then, as you move ahead now? The commercial business is going very well now, and you're hoping that's going to be 100% of your business. The agency is working very well, the licensing part. What's next? Any plans? Or obviously we want to come out of this lockdown situation so you can get back to work. That's number one. But what sort of plans have you got?
Tomorrow I will sign a contract with a German publisher, and I've already started working on a book which will take 3 months now, and so I have something to do for the lockdown period.
Thank you to Elke. Absolute privilege talking to her, and the work is just incredible. I know a few people have suggested Elke actually over the last few months, but I must admit, Elke's always been on the radar, because since being introduced to her work, I am a self-confessed fan of her work. But we'll be back tomorrow. We got a sort of jaunt around certain countries tomorrow, Kev, by the magic of Zoom, to find out what people have been doing in their personal projects. So see you tomorrow, Kev.
Bye-bye.
The Fujicast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Goodbye, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. We're back tomorrow with another show. Well, unless we're fired, we'll talk to you then. Goodbye, sweetheart. Goodbye. Goodbye.